The silence surrounding the Nancy Guthrie investigation didn't disappear quietly. It detonated like a controlled explosion in the dead of night. At exactly 3:14 a.m., Savannah's phone illuminated with a call federal authorities now insist should never have connected. And what unfolded over the next 12 seconds allegedly ignited chaos inside FBI surveillance systems, triggered emergency tactical deployment, and ripped open secrets influential figures had spent months desperately hiding. But here's the question nobody can answer. Why did several powerful public figures suddenly begin wiping their social media accounts less than an hour after the call ended? Random coincidence? Or did someone warn them the entire empire was collapsing in real time? According to leaked intelligence files, the voice on the line belonged to Tommaso Con, the ghost-like figure investigators failed to trace for more than 100 days. A man accused of manipulating surveillance grids, destroying digital trails, and operating within a hidden network allegedly tied directly to Annie Guthrie herself. Yeah, the same Annie who spent months sobbing on television, presenting herself as the shattered face of the investigation. But behind sealed doors, federal insiders now suspect she may have been coordinating the entire operation from the very beginning. And just when agents believed the scandal couldn't sink any deeper, Savannah's midnight phone call allegedly revealed something far bigger than a missing person mystery. Hidden financial pipelines, offshore accounts, burned evidence, encrypted archives, and a classified red dossier so dangerous insiders claimed members of Los Angeles elite circles began panicking before dawn even arrived. Because according to anonymous leaks, the second Tommaso spoke those final words into the phone, the cover-up officially died. Nobody inside federal intelligence expected Savannah to answer that call. According to insiders, agents had spent weeks tracking fragmented digital signals tied to the Nancy Guthrie case, but nothing solid had emerged. The investigation was frozen. Buried beneath corrupted records, vanished surveillance footage, and anonymous interference from sources investigators still refused to identify publicly. Then suddenly, 3:14 a.m. One incoming call rewrote everything. Sources claim the instant Savannah answered, alarms erupted inside a classified monitoring facility. Initially, analysts assumed it was another fabricated signal. Another phantom transmission created to drain federal resources. But then the voice arrived. Calm. Distorted. Mechanical. Yet strangely familiar enough to silence the entire room. Within seconds, advanced forensic systems reportedly isolated a perfect vocal match connected to Tommaso Con, the same man agents secretly labeled the invisible operator, a figure so untouchable some investigators had started questioning whether he even existed. And this is where the story spirals into something so insane it sounds like a conspiracy thriller written during a caffeine-fueled breakdown at 2 a.m. According to internal leaks, Tommaso wasn't calling Savannah to intimidate her. He was terrified. Witnesses familiar with the intercepted recording claim his breathing sounded unstable, frantic, almost desperate. This was the same man investigators spent months describing as emotionally unreachable. A strategist capable of erasing entire communication networks before agencies even realized they existed. But during those 12 seconds, that composure shattered completely. Then came the sentence federal authorities still refused to release publicly. Multiple anonymous sources claim Tommaso referenced something called the second archive moments before accidentally exposing GPS coordinates connected to a private underground site outside Los Angeles. The second those coordinates appeared inside the monitoring system, the investigation transformed from a missing person case into what insiders now describe as a national-level criminal exposure operation. And suddenly, Annie Guthrie's carefully manufactured image began collapsing in real time. For months, Annie perfected the performance flawlessly. Emotional interviews. Designer sunglasses hiding staged tears. Carefully rehearsed press conferences where she pleaded with the public to keep searching for Nancy. Social media campaigns framed her as a devastated family figure drowning in unimaginable grief. Millions believed every second of it. Why wouldn't they? She looked exactly like every true crime victim America had ever watched. But according to leaked federal documents, while cameras focused on her heartbreak, investigators now suspect she was secretly coordinating movements behind the scenes with Tommaso himself. Recovered surveillance footage from an exclusive charity gala reportedly captured the exact moment everything changed. The clip lasted only 5 seconds. No dramatic confrontation. No yelling. Just Annie standing beside a private balcony while Tommaso approached quietly from behind. No words exchanged, just a glance, a slight nod. Then both walked away in opposite directions like strangers. Federal behavioral analysts later described the interaction as silent operational confirmation. Yeah, let that sink in. Investigators now believe the gala wasn't a social gathering at all. It was a live coordination meeting disguised beneath celebrities, billionaires, and political donors sipping champagne while an entire disappearance operation was already unfolding around them. Because according to insiders close to the case, Nancy Guthrie wasn't targeted by accident. She allegedly possessed encrypted access keys tied to offshore financial structures worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And apparently, she knew far too much. Sources now claim Nancy secretly uncovered a hidden network connected to money laundering, information suppression, and elite blackmail operations stretching far beyond California. That's why federal investigators believe Annie and Tommaso became desperate. Nancy wasn't simply a problem. She was a threat capable of destroying an empire. But here's the twist nobody expected. Investigators no longer believe Nancy was merely hunted. They believe she knew they were coming. According to reports tied to the encrypted Red dossier, Nancy had already begun documenting suspicious activity weeks before disappearing. Deleted emails. Strange encrypted messages. Unmarked vehicles parked outside her home after midnight. One source even claims Nancy secretly recorded Annie arguing with an unidentified male voice discussing containment timelines. Whatever Nancy uncovered terrified her enough to begin leaving evidence behind piece by piece like breadcrumbs for someone to eventually follow. That person became Savannah. And this is where Savannah's role becomes almost impossible to believe. While the public moved on and social media turned the investigation into another trending circus, Savannah allegedly continued digging through corrupted files investigators ignored. She tracked deleted metadata, unexplained timestamps, and irregular signal activity buried inside communication logs connected to Annie's private network. According to insiders, federal agents initially dismissed her discoveries as obsessive internet conspiracy theories. Massive mistake. Because hidden deep inside one damaged archive, Savannah reportedly uncovered an inactive relay signal connected to a private encrypted line. Investigators now believe that discovery unknowingly cornered Tommaso. The invisible operator realized someone was getting dangerously close to the truth, and sometime before 3:14 a.m., he made the decision that destroyed everything. He called her. The aftermath was immediate. Sources described total chaos inside federal monitoring facilities once Tommaso's identity was confirmed. Tactical teams mobilized before the call even ended. Emergency warrants were approved within minutes. Helicopter surveillance units activated across multiple locations connected to Annie Guthrie's inner circle. One former intelligence contractor described the atmosphere as pure panic mixed with adrenaline. Because for the first time in over 100 days, investigators finally had a living thread connecting every piece together. And then the raid started. According to leaked operational details, federal agents stormed Tommaso's temporary safe house moments before sunrise. Nearby witnesses reported hearing flash grenades and screaming as armed tactical units breached the building through 3 separate entry points. Investigators later recovered encrypted hard drives, destroyed SIM cards, multiple fake passports, and a partially burned document referencing offshore account systems tied to shell corporations in Europe. But the bigger shock arrived nearly 60 miles away. At the exact same moment, federal agents smashed through the gates of Annie Guthrie's heavily protected estate. And what they allegedly discovered inside sounded less like reality, and more like the final act of a psychological thriller. Sources claim Annie was found alone inside a private office surrounded by shredded papers, and half-burned documents still smoking inside a fireplace. In her right hand, a leaking burner phone investigators say disconnected only seconds earlier. But witnesses inside the raid claimed the truly horrifying part wasn't the evidence. It was Annie's reaction. No screaming. No confusion. No denial. According to insiders, she looked directly at the agents entering the room and whispered only 4 words. "You're already too late." That sentence reportedly triggered immediate federal alerts because investigators suddenly realized something terrifying. Annie didn't sound afraid of being arrested. She sounded terrified of whoever came next. And that's when the case stopped being about Nancy Guthrie entirely. It became about uncovering who was truly controlling the machine behind the curtain. The moment Annie Guthrie entered federal custody, investigators believed the nightmare was finally ending. They were wrong. According to leaked internal reports, the arrests of Annie and Tommaso didn't stop the operation. They detonated it. Within hours, encrypted servers tied to elite financial networks reportedly began erasing themselves clean. Private social accounts vanished overnight. Entire archives disappeared from cloud storage systems before federal technicians could secure them. One insider described the digital panic as watching ghosts erase their own existence in real time. And then came the discovery that pushed the investigation into territory so dark even veteran agents were allegedly shaken. Hidden inside one encrypted drive recovered from Tommaso's possession was a classified directory investigators now call the Black Ledger. At first glance, it looked harmless. Random names. Transaction codes. Offshore routing numbers. One celebrity attorney was even seen entering a federal courthouse carrying what insiders described as emergency immunity documents. Coincidence? Maybe. But online investigators immediately spotted something even more disturbing. Dozens of public figures previously linked to Annie Guthrie suddenly began erasing years of photographs, private party footage, and exclusive event archives from social media. Images vanished. Tagged posts disappeared. Entire friendships were wiped away like they never happened. One viral user summarized it perfectly. People only run this fast when they know the flames are already coming. And honestly, that may have been the most accurate thing posted online all week. Meanwhile, inside federal custody, Tommaso reportedly started falling apart under pressure. Sources familiar with the interrogation claim the so-called invisible operator no longer appeared untouchable. The same strategist once described as emotionally robotic had apparently stopped sleeping entirely. Witnesses say he repeatedly asked investigators one disturbing question again and again. Did Annie tell them about him? Not them. Him? That single word changed everything. Because until that moment, investigators still believed Annie and Tommaso were the masterminds. But according to insiders close to the case, federal analysts are now increasingly convinced both suspects were operating under instructions from a third figure hidden far above them. Someone powerful enough to remain completely invisible while others absorbed all the operational risk. And if that theory is true, the real architect behind Nancy Guthrie's disappearance may still be walking free. The pressure exploded again after forensic technicians finally unlocked part of the infamous red file secretly left behind for Savannah. Investigators expected encrypted banking records or hidden communication logs. Instead, they discovered something nobody anticipated, a video recorded by Nancy herself. According to leaked descriptions from sources who allegedly viewed the footage, Nancy appeared exhausted, terrified, and completely aware she was being watched. The recording carried a timestamp from only 6 hours before her disappearance. But what stunned investigators wasn't her fear. It was her certainty. Nancy reportedly stared directly into the camera and calmly predicted everything. The date. The method. The extraction plan. Even Annie and Tommaso's involvement. Federal analysts now believe Nancy uncovered the conspiracy weeks before anyone realized she was in danger. One source described the footage as a woman documenting her own abduction before it happened. But then came the moment investigators say transformed the entire case. Nancy allegedly says, "If this reaches Savannah, it means I was right." That single sentence reportedly silenced the entire forensic review room, because investigators now believe Nancy intentionally allowed the operation to continue unfolding. Not because she was powerless, but because she understood exposing the network from the outside was impossible. According to internal theories, Nancy realized the only way to destroy the machine was to become the evidence herself, a calculated sacrifice. And suddenly, Savannah's role became even more terrifying. Sources now claim Nancy specifically left encrypted breadcrumbs designed for Savannah to eventually uncover. Hidden metadata. Dead drop archives. Fragmented access keys buried inside corrupted files. Every strange clue Savannah followed may have been intentionally planted months earlier by Nancy herself, meaning the entire collapse of Annie and Tommaso's empire may have been orchestrated from the very beginning. But the deeper investigators dug into the red file, the darker things became. Because hidden beneath layers of encryption, federal technicians reportedly uncovered metadata pointing toward a second underground location investigators still haven't publicly reached. Authorities refuse to reveal where it leads, but insiders claim tactical discussions surrounding the site have already reached national-level security channels. Why? Because some investigators fear the location may contain evidence tied to individuals far more dangerous than Annie Guthrie. And that fear intensified after Annie reportedly made one final demand during interrogation. According to federal sources, she refused to answer additional questions unless granted direct communication with the FBI director himself, not her attorneys, not local investigators, the director. Think about how insane that sounds. What information could possibly be valuable enough to negotiate at that level? Some believe Annie knows where Nancy was ultimately taken. Others suspect she possesses evidence capable of exposing political figures, media executives, or international financial operators connected to the shadow network. Either way, one thing has become horrifyingly clear. The Nancy Guthrie case was never simply a disappearance. It was a controlled operation hiding behind public tragedy. And now the entire machine is collapsing in front of the world. By the third day after Annie Guthrie's arrest, federal insiders were already describing the situation as uncontrollable. What started as a missing person investigation had now exploded into a full-scale exposure operation stretching across political circles, elite financial systems, and private intelligence networks nobody outside government agencies was ever supposed to see. But according to leaked reports, the most dangerous part of the investigation still hasn't been revealed publicly. Because somewhere behind Annie, behind Tommaso, behind the red file itself, investigators believe someone else is still watching, and they may already be preparing to disappear. Sources close to the case claim panic inside elite Los Angeles circles has reached levels investigators compare to a silent evacuation. Private jets tied to high-profile individuals reportedly departed California within hours of the federal raids. Crisis managers, security consultants, and high-powered attorneys flooded luxury estates connected to Annie's social network. Meanwhile, encrypted communication platforms allegedly experienced massive deletion activity unlike anything analysts had ever seen. One federal technician described the scene perfectly. It looked like people were trying to erase themselves before sunrise. And honestly, that might not even be an exaggeration anymore. Because hidden inside Tommaso Con's encrypted devices, investigators reportedly uncovered fragments of what insiders are calling a shadow directory. Not just names, connections, secret transactions, coordinated communication patterns between influential individuals who publicly pretended they barely knew each other. According to sources familiar with the evidence, the directory allegedly links media executives, offshore financial handlers, and political insiders to operations extending far beyond Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. And here's where things become genuinely terrifying. Federal investigators now suspect Nancy may have uncovered evidence tied to a hidden influence system designed to manipulate public narratives, suppress damaging information, and financially destroy individuals who threaten the network. In simple terms, a machine built to erase people without leaving fingerprints, which suddenly makes Nancy's disappearance feel far less random. Meanwhile, Savannah has unintentionally become the center of the entire storm. The woman once mocked online as obsessed is now reportedly under federal protection after multiple anonymous threats were intercepted following Annie's arrest. Sources claim Savannah's digital accounts have faced non-stop intrusion attempts from unidentified locations since the red file became known inside investigative circles. And according to insiders, that's not even the worst part, because federal analysts believe someone may still be searching for the second archive Nancy hid before vanishing. Remember those coordinates Tommaso accidentally exposed during the infamous 12-second phone call? Tactical teams reportedly reached the underground location less than 2 hours after the arrests. But when agents entered the site, something immediately felt wrong. Witnesses familiar with the operation claim the underground facility appeared partially abandoned, almost like whoever operated there already knew federal teams were coming. Rooms emptied. Hard drives destroyed. Servers ripped apart. Walls burned. But according to leaked details, agents still recovered enough evidence to trigger immediate national-level alerts across multiple agencies. One source described the material as career-ending information for people society considers untouchable. Yeah, let that sink in. And suddenly, Annie Guthrie's final words during her arrest started making horrifying sense. "You're already too late." Investigators now believe Annie wasn't referring to herself. She was warning them that the true power behind the operation had already started disappearing before the raids even happened, which explains why federal authorities allegedly sealed portions of the investigation under emergency classification within hours. But despite the secrecy, fragments continue leaking out. According to one anonymous source connected to the forensic review team, technicians analyzing Nancy's final video discovered something almost nobody noticed at first. Reflected faintly in the background of the recording was another figure standing behind the camera for less than 2 seconds. Not Annie. Not Tommaso. Someone else. The image appeared blurry, distorted, nearly impossible to identify. But investigators reportedly enhanced enough detail to confirm one chilling fact. Nancy wasn't alone while recording the confession, meaning whoever controlled the operation may have been watching her during the final hours before she disappeared. And if that's true, the implications are terrifying because it suggests Nancy knowingly recorded evidence while standing face to face with the people hunting her. One federal analyst allegedly described the footage as psychologically disturbing beyond comprehension. Another source claimed agents reviewing the material had to stop analysis after hearing what sounded like a second voice whispering something moments before the video cuts to black. Authorities refused to confirm what was said. Naturally, that only sent the internet into absolute chaos. Online conspiracy channels exploded within hours. Some users claim the whisper references politicians. Others believe it reveals the identity of the hidden third figure Annie mentioned after her arrest. Meanwhile, social media platforms are drowning in theories connecting the case to offshore banking systems, elite blackmail operations, and private intelligence contractors operating behind public institutions. And honestly, at this point, Even federal investigators reportedly don't know where the truth actually ends, because every answer